Father Stew, Joe Bell, Bloodshot. I love the Purge movies. I even think they're shot really well too. And I tell you, your work. And I was talking to another person about like their work. I feel like your work is kind of the same thing. It's very eclectic, right? So these movies are very different from each other. Father Stew couldn't be any more different than the Purge movies, and they couldn't be any more different than Gran Turismo. So it's really cool how you kind of shake things up as a. But it's always good to be on your toes, right, Jacques? So you're not comfortable shooting the same type of movie every single time, right?
That's right. And I think as a director of photography, I don't know about the others, but I definitely, for me, I find that you always choose your next project against the project that you just finished.
Right.
For example, you take for example Gran Turismo, which was shot in a very documentary feel-like situation, was very much going against. I did season 3 and 4 of Jack Ryan, and I felt that I stylized it too much.
Right.
So I went into Gran Turismo. I said, okay, I'm not going to do anything. Just going to shoot it old school, like if I were shooting film, just get the correct exposure and good to go, and not trying to make it something that is a little bit dishonest.
Right.
Trying to make it more than what it is. And so, you kind of refresh yourself every time. But the one element that you will see in all my filmography that I'm interested in, and that is the main goal of what I've tried to do every time, is to ground whatever the project is to some kind of reality that the audience, can appreciate. Right. Because my agenda is very much, even for The Purge, which is a outlandish story, which means for 12 hours you can't commit any crime.
Right.
And okay, so fair enough. This is pretty wild. This is unreal. But okay, how can I make the audience feel that it is real, that they're experiencing this as a reality, forget about it. And so I try to give some cues that, okay, this is grounded of some kind of reality. And I think that's my job as a cinematographer, regardless of the story, to give that sense of reality to my audience. Too.
Yeah, congratulations on an absolutely spectacular film.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, I gotta say, it's been a while since I've actually pumped my fist and clapped at a movie, but I wasn't alone in it, man. It was just what a ride.
Yes.
Literally, what a ride.
You know what? You're not the very first one who told me that, and the number. I think I did see the movie twice. And but more importantly, my wife and kid went to see it. I think that's the one movie that my wife absolutely loved, and she was completely thrilled about it. And even my daughters were just our geeks who were just pumping their fists. So yes.
Yeah, I want to work my way there, but I kind of want to talk about a few things before we get there. So you're for those listening or watching, you're raised in Paris. Your love of film comes from dad, huh?
Correct. Yes, my father. I grew up in Paris. So I'm French. My father was a very older man when he got me, was absolutely a film lover. And he particularly remembered when he was very young and at the end of World War II. And then he was in Paris finishing his studies. And at that time, at the liberation of Paris, then suddenly you had this wave of all the American movie that finally made it to Europe, to France. And so basically my father spent all this time studying and watching movies. And then when I grew up, he was very much the very first one who, when there was a great Western coming in, we say, oh, this is an amazing Western, we should take a look at it. Anthony Mann, Winchester 73. And so that's when I started to realize, oh, okay, there's someone behind that is in charge. And that's basically where my love really started.
When you see some of the films that you used to watch, perhaps with your dad or what have you, do you think about him? Like, do memories come back when you see a certain film?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he was very much definitely not an artistic man. He was an engineer. He was a diplomat. But he had a great understanding of film, loved films. And so I was interested about it from the get-go. And then growing up in Paris, in the 80s and the late 70s, Paris was an incredible city for moviegoers because you had so many movie theaters from movies from all over the world, and I basically wasted my youth.
No waste. And then NYU played a part too, right?
I went to NYU, just straight went to NYU, complete fluke. That was not my intention, and it happened very, very quickly. And then studied at NYU, and then from then on, I stayed in the US and did all my career in the US, which means I'm the one Frenchman who has never worked in France.
I'm looking at your filmography, and one thing that struck me big time was, yes, as a composer, you have a wonderful filmography. But then when you dig a little deeper in your work as, your camera work and other projects, like Seabiscuit's one of my all-time favorite movies. It's a gorgeous movie. Like forget how awesome it is, the story plays out. But if you were to turn down the volume and just watch that movie, it is simply gorgeous, Jacques, as you know. But
gorgeous film. DP was John Schwartzman, a wonderful director of photography, and that was his camera. And as you could see from my filmography, I started as a camera operator. I started as a cinematographer, as a director, as a steady camera operator, and then just made my way all the way as a regular camera operator. And between you and I, I'm sure you've read it, but that was not my intention to be a director of photography. I was very happy to be a camera operator working with wonderful director of photography and directors. And it just fell on my lap very much with the Purge films, which I just did this very, very as a favor for a director to shoot this movie very quickly, and then it became what it became.
Yeah, I love the Purge movies, but just quickly for those listening or watching that may not be familiar with your work, Man on Fire you were a part of, Into the Wild, Lone Survivor, Patriots Day. And I noticed that a lot of your work comes with Mark Wahlberg. Do you guys have a relationship? Do you guys have a good rapport with each other?
We have a very good rapport. I'm a good friend with Mark, and the reason why is just basically for a period of 10 years, we were going back to back with two different directors. One was Peter Berg, the other one was Michael Bay. Yeah. And it just turned out that I was the A camera operator for those two directors. So we would go from one movie to the other. So we will do a Transformer movie, and then we will go Lone Survivor, and then we'll get back to Michael Bay, and then we'll get back to Pete Berg. So eventually it ended up by pure coincidence that we were working with the same director at the same time. And I have to say, so I've done maybe 10, 12 movies with with Mark. And he was very influential in my career as a director of photography, because he's the one who told Pete, you should, Jacques should be your next year DP, and so forth, and Michael as well. And eventually when he had some low budget passion project that he wants to do, then he gave me a call, Jacques, can you do that very quickly for me? And I'm very, very happy to do so.
Yeah, and it's great that somebody has your back like that they believe in your work that much, where they want to bring you aboard on future projects. I mean, that I believe is the ultimate compliment, right?
Yes, what happened is that I did very early in my career, I did a movie with Mark, which is my very first time I worked with Mark Wahlberg, Invincible.
Yeah, great movie.
Director Erickson Core. That's where we met. And we had a great time on this. And I was the A camera operator on that project. And then for a period of 5-6 years, we didn't work together until Lone Survivor. And Lone Survivor was a very difficult movie to shoot because of the condition. Yeah. And I know that Mark told me after that, I was very concerned if we were ever going to make it or survive to do it. And then he remembered, but he had great confidence in Pete Berg. But then he told me, on the first day or the day before, I saw the call sheet and I saw that you were the A camera operator. I said, we are in good shape.
Yeah,
it's going to be great. So, and then from then on, I went directly to Transformer 3 with him. And then we went back and forth, Deepwater Horizon and so forth.
I feel like Peter Berg is very underrated as a director. He's a really, really good director. Like
amazing director, probably my favorite director to work for. I would say my sensibility is closest to his in terms of the way he directs. Let's say, for example, if I was a director, I would probably direct very much like Pete Berg does, definitely not with his talent, but we are very much simpatico. And I think what's really great in my relationship with Pete is that I was his A camera operator for 5 movies before I did my 22, and now I'm doing a Netflix miniseries with him. We are very much on the same page in terms of the way it works, and it was wonderful for me to work as a camera operator, because the camera operator position is very much a position that is closest aligned to the director as opposed to the DP.
Right.
I think you have to understand that language, and you have to understand that the camera operator and the director, very much their agenda are similar in the sense that we are there to tell the story. The DP is very much, I'm supposed to make it look good.
Right.
The camera operator is tell the story. So you very much need to be in sync with the director. And then, so it was wonderful for me when I moved to DP for Pete to understand that connection that he has with the camera operator, and how as a DP you should be on the side and just manage it, but give them freedom as much as possible.
Right. Well, how is your approach developed when it comes to dealing with like different actors, right? Because I talk to tons of people that are either composers and especially cinematographers. I would imagine that your job actors are very particular about how they're shot. I mean,
Correct.
some I was talking to a cinematographer last night, and he was talking about how some actors bring a positive vibe on set, and everything's wonderful, and then you have a few that maybe don't have that type of attitude, and it can do the opposite. But how do you're dealing with personalities, you're dealing with some things here. How is that developed for you? How do you handle that stuff, John?
For any project, I think my go-to approach is freedom for the actors, freedom for my director, freedom to do what they want to do in the way they want to do it, from an emotional or physical standpoint. I am here to support them, and I'm not here to impose my technical issues to them.
Right.
I'm here to say, okay, which way do you want to do it? So it starts very much from the director. And I think what's more important to me when I meet a director and we talk about a project is very much, okay, yes, I understand what we are going to shoot, but I'm also very much interested in the way you want to shoot it. How do you want to approach your actors? Do you want to be extremely controlled? Do you want to be very much freedom? Do you want to give them as much freedom as possible? You give me that information, and then I'll have a parameter. So I say, okay, I know the space that I need to give you and your actors to work with, and that limits or not, the way I'm going to light, the way I'm going to frame it, the way I'm going to compose the position. So just to give you, for example, very quickly, the broad range that you can go on one hand, you can work with someone like David Fincher, who's going to use one camera and do 60 takes every time. Yeah. And everything is super controlled. Or you can go like a Pete Berger of Michael Bay, where anything goes. And you can start a scene in a bedroom and then finish on a subway station without cut. And so you have to find, okay, where am I here? What do I need to go to give the freedom to my director that he can create, and he can work with the process that he has in mind. And then from then on, you work with the actors. There is actors that love the freedom that I'm giving them. And there is actors that actually wants control. I remember this project that I did with this actor, and he needed marks. He needed marks. He needed, where do you want me, Jacques? Can I go there, put a mark? And then to another actor who doesn't want anything. So you approach them and you see what is important to them or not. And it can be very simple. He wants something. Does he want something very close? Does he want something very wide? When can you approach him? When can you not approach it? When you start, and then as you process the film, you realize it's better on the second take, on the third take, and so forth. What bothers him? Does the light bother him when he's there? Is it something that bothers him or her? Then therefore, okay, I've got to find a different solution.
Gotcha. Is 60 takes overkill, do you think? I've heard that before. He does 75, he had 60. I feel like that's excessive, but then again, I'm not talented.
I feel that is, what I would say is that I've got a great anecdote to tell you. Okay. There was this wonderful director of photography who unfortunately passed away, and I was his camera operator on a few projects, and his name was Harris Savides. And a wonderful director of photography. And he worked with Fincher. He did Zodiac with Fincher. He did The Game and so forth. Amazing DP. And we were about actually for Zodiac, for a moment, I was supposed to work with him, but eventually my schedule didn't work. But I remember him talking to me and after Zodiac, and he said, "Hey, Jacques, okay, you're so good that you were not there. You would have been bored out of your mind." And I say, I was just for the movie, and the editor was right next behind me in the big screen. And every time we see a shot, he will lean forward to me and say, "That's take two." That's take one.
Oh my God.
He must say,
Yes, yes. So before we get into your filmography and then quickly to Gran Turismo, what's your take on one shots, right? Because Big Deal was made of 1917. There's a show on Netflix called Haunting of Hill House that has an epic one shot. Do you think one shots are a necessary part of the story, or do you think it's kind of a way of, I want to be careful how I phrase this, of just showing somebody that you're an impressive filmmaker, right? I mean, I don't know. I feel like the way they were used in the two films I mentioned, I felt they were used well. But I mean, I know how difficult they are. But what's your take on them? Necessary? Do you need them? I mean, is it whatever you wanted to say?
Well, if it is necessary, what I would say 2-3 things. The first thing is that if this is necessary, then this is a director's choice. And I am not one who's going to argue with the director.
Gotcha.
This is the way you want to do it.
Yeah.
I thought that 1917 was very well done.
Yeah.
I think in terms of the show-off element of it, or the difficulty of it, doesn't to me come from the director or the director of photography, but for the media. We can stop talking about it, and I wish we'd stop talking about it. Stop asking them how they did it, and so forth, and just let it be and let the audience enjoy it instead of being constantly on it. I don't think they want to advertise it as much as you wish you could. Right. Now, this is not a fault for the media. This is just normal. So I think one shot has a place, when it's needed, and I think. The one only negative element that I would say is not particularly negative is that it has a tendency sometimes to become just a one-trick pony.
Right.
And then it just becomes that. And then when that interferes for the emotional curve and arc of the film, then that's when I see, okay, maybe there is some weaknesses. And we could have break that moment, but that's not for me to say. That's for the director to make a decision. Right. And I love the endeavor, and I think particularly 1917. And there is another one. There is this one Steadicam shot, the Noah's Ark, that was done. But it's. I think there is a place for it, and I think that's the only weakness sometimes I find. That it's just a little bit of a one-trick pony, and the only caveat I will say to that is just because I'm looking at it from a technical standpoint, and I'm hoping that the audience doesn't do that.
Did you say there's one in Noah, the movie that came out?
There is this one Steadicam shot, the movie that I think is called Noah's Ark.
It's not the Darren Aronofsky movie?
No, it's not. It's not. Okay. It's not. And it's basically it takes place in St. Petersburg in one.
Gotcha.
And then more recently, there is the other one, which is absolutely wonderful, which is Victoria.
You're right.
Which is really well done. That works very, very well.
Yeah.
So I'm all for that if the director and the creative teams decide this is the way to go.
Yeah, and let's get into just for those listening, your filmography here very quickly. Father Stu, Joe Bell, Bloodshot. I love the Purge movies. I even think they're shot really well too. And I tell you, your work, and I was talking to another person about like their work. I feel like your work is kind of the same thing. It's very eclectic, right? So these movies are very different from each other. Father Stu couldn't be any more different than the Purge movies, and they couldn't be any more different than Gran Turismo. So it's really cool how you kind of shake things up as a. But it's always good to be on your toes, right, Jacques? So you're not comfortable shooting the same type of movie every single time, right?
That's right. And I think as a director of photography, I don't know about the others, but I definitely, for me, I find that you always choose your next project against the project that you just finished.
Right.
For example, you take for example Gran Turismo, which was shot in a very documentary feel-like situation, was very much going against. I did season 3 and 4 of Jack Ryan, and I felt that I stylized it too much.
Right.
So I went into Gran Turismo. I said, okay, I'm not going to do anything. Just going to shoot it old school, like if I were shooting film, just get the correct exposure and good to go, and not trying to to make it something that is a little bit dishonest.
Right.
Trying to make it more than what it is. And so, you kind of refresh yourself every time. But the one element that you will see in all my filmography that I'm interested in, and that is the main goal of what I've tried to do every time, is to ground whatever the project is to some kind of reality that the audience, can appreciate.
Right.
Because my agenda is very much, even for The Purge, which is a outlandish story, which means for 12 hours you can't commit any crime.
Right.
And okay, so fair enough. This is pretty wild. This is unreal. But okay, how can I make the audience feel that it is real, that they're experiencing this as a reality, forget about it? And so I try to give some cues that, okay, this is grounded of some kind of reality. And I think that's my job as a cinematographer, regardless of the story, to give that sense of reality to my audience.
Yeah, I have to say, before I got into Gran Turismo, I still love Days of Thunder very much. I love Rush. I think those are phenomenal. And I had the cinematographer that did Days of Thunder, Ward Russell, on the podcast.
Yeah.
That movie has like a haze, right? Tony Scott's movies always, and you know the words better than I do, but it's like this haze, and I love the way that plays. Oh God, I love the way Tony Scott's movies look. Man on Fire had that same kind of glow to it.
Yes, of all the directors that have influenced me the most, definitely Tony Scott, Sean Penn, Pete Berg, Michael Bay. Those four directors, I've learned so much from them. They made me a much better camera operator to begin with, and at the same time, seeing the way they operate, seeing the way they drive and a set, and you can see all their element, each of them in the work that I do. Tony Scott, the long glance. The use of the long glance, you see it on Gran Turismo. Definitely for me, that from Tony. Layering, definitely Tony Scott, for sure. You take Sean Penn, this organic element, finding the beauty, where it is, definitely come from Sean Penn and the work that I did on Into the Wild with him. Pete Berg, very much the way he works with actor. The one thing that you understand with Pete is a former actor. So basically for him, the only thing that matters is the performance. The actors are king and queen. The camera, I don't care. The light, I don't care. You find a way to make it work, because I want to catch the moment that I've not planned. I want to catch the moment that are accident, and I want to make sure that there's a camera there when that happens. And then Michael Bay, which is completely different, who is the complete opposite of Pete Berg in terms everything is the look, everything is the visual that are the most important, but is the most incredible graphic artist that I've ever worked with, the most amazing guy who see things that you don't see, that you realize the beauty of it once you see it. And what's very interesting, let's say, for example, about Pete and Michael, is that as much as their priority are completely different, the process is identical.
Right.
But they put the emphasis on different things.
Gotcha.
Very, very interesting.
Gotcha. Yeah. What I loved about Gran Turismo is the little touches. It seems so real. There was no like phony, like fake CGI things in it. And I like the little touches where you could see what place he was in. You could see, the car coming apart. Like those little touches. Neil's got that down. I mean, that and as a team, what a wonderful, wonderful set of touches. And the scene that really caught me off guard was when you're really cheering for him and you think he's finally turned the corner, and then the car goes up, and then spoiler alert, but people, I mean, I don't think it kills the movie, but like then somebody dies and he has to own that.
Yeah.
Anything I just said, what you wanted to say, and that scene, how tough was that to shoot?
It was difficult and easy in the same way. I'm very much like that you mentioned that scene, because this is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It is one of my favorite scenes in the movie because he basically is the perfect symbol of what we try to do in this movie.
Yes.
Which is to make it as real as possible. It is a real story. That's one. And the second element of it is the fact that the title of this project is Gran Turismo, and the Call of Fame of Gran Turismo is to make it as real as possible.
Right.
And then third is that the entire process is to take those gamers from their bedroom and who are playing that game and then finally make the transition to the real deal. So it was important for Neil and I to make it the experience as real as possible. And that scene very much, as you mentioned, it's a true story. It happened in reality. It was extremely important for Jan Mardenborough, our character, that we included in his life, because it's a very, very important moment of his life. And we shot it at Nürburgring. We wanted to go exactly where it went, where it happened. We went to that particular turn. And Nürburgring refused to give us the permission to actually recreate in real the accident for obvious reasons. This is not something that they really want to advertise.
Sure.
So what we did, you can go on YouTube and you can see the real event on YouTube that was captured by the CCTV camera that are surrounding the track. And so what we did, we replicate exactly those CCTV camera angle. So we went back to the place in Nürburgring and I shot plates, identical plates that mimic and replicate the actual CCTV camera. And we recreated with the actors and so forth the crash when the car ended up with all the actors, all the extras leaving, when the car coming in.
Yeah.
And so we recreated, and then our amazing visual effects supervisor, Victor Mueller, basically recreated the crash from there. And the only thing that we added is obviously the view from the interior of the cockpit. We see the front going through the windshield. We see a side angle of Jan inside the car and he's basically tumbling. And I think, because of that, that's very much what Neil and I are trying to do. It's a perfect symbol of what Gran Turismo is about.
Oh, it's perfect because as a viewer, you're watching, you're like, oh my God, he's finally coming into his own. He's going to win this race. He's going to do it. Yeah. And as the audience, you are not ready for that moment.
Yeah.
But Jacques, on a separate thing, like that seems like an insane place to watch a race from. Like that seems like it's awfully close to the track. It seems like it's a very dangerous situation to be in. I'm not trying to speak ill of the dead. I'm not, but it just seems like a place.
Yes, and you're right. And they have, since that accident, they have reinforced that turn and the protection for the audience and so forth. And it is an extremely very well-known, very dangerous place. Basically, I think the turn and the straightaway is called the airfield because you can easily lose contact with the ground. So they made some obvious changes, but I really love all about it. And then, for example, when he's taken into the helicopter to go to the hospital, this is where it took place. We shot it exactly at the right location, and so it was very, very much important, for us and Neil to shoot it in all real place. So it's not like there is no CGI. There is a lot of CGI, but it's supplemental.
Yeah.
All the real stuff happen. It's real. The actors are in the car. We're going full speed, 150, 250 miles an hour on the tracks. There's 22. All of this is real. And then we do have supplemental CGI in terms of the environment, but all the action on the track is real.
I think this movie's going to play a lot bigger when people find out how really good it is. Like, I mean, I think some people it's a race car. It's based on a video game. It's like, well, wait a second. Give it a chance first.
I think you're absolutely right. I think there was a lot of bias from the get-go because video game, movie are not particularly the greatest reputation. And I think, there is particularly a lot of critics at the very beginning came in maybe with a bias, which is correct, which is true, which should be. And, but I think what's amazing to me is the fact that the audience absolutely love. I mean, people told me that it has a higher end audience score than Barbie and Oppenheimer.
Yes.
So I think it's going to be a movie that over the years and over, as you're going to see over and over again. And what was for Neil and I very, very important is to present the races, how violent those races are, to really make the audience understand that the drivers who are in those cars are real athletes. This is not a comfortable ride. This is very hard physically on anybody. So we wanted to convey that, and we wanted to give the audience a different view different angles of a car and experience the car from a driver's point of view, and to give them the sense how violent this sport is and dangerous. And so that was our goal going into it. And so it was wonderful to follow this young man going through that. And it's a coming of age movie. This is a young man making his way in the world, trying it out, being full of fear and anxiety. And so there is a little bit, it's a family movie, but a little bit of a darkness to it as well, and anxiety. And that's basically what we try to do.
Part of me almost wishes they didn't even use the word video game, because you don't have to know anything. Like, it plays well as a story. It just, video games shouldn't even be used in this. I get it. You know what I'm saying?
It's a sport movie. It's an underdog movie.
Yes, yes.
It doesn't try to be more than that. It doesn't try. And yes, the seed of the idea is Gran Turismo, but it is just any other sport movie that you would have seen, but in this environment, and what we really try, Neil and I and the team, is to give you a thrill and to give you an experience of the races, and that this way you can feel in your bone those races.
Yeah, and that's the one challenge I think I would have. Like, video games are great, but to actually go 200 miles an hour, like your hand-eye coordination, knowing the track and the lines, I get
right.
that. But like once you get in there and you feel the force, oh my God, that's got to be like unbelievable. Two quick questions for you. I had Andrew on, who was one of the composers. I want to say I just love how Neil brought everyone together, because the cinematography is fantastic. The soundtrack is awesome. Everything just blends really well, Jacques.
Yeah.
Beautifully, don't you think?
Absolutely, and that's good. And I give that to Neil. Very strong director, very strong visual, very strong in every aspect. He has a very clear view on the way he wants to do a movie and what he has. It's not that he doesn't want to collaborate, but I think he just simply has very, very clear. And it was a great experience to work with him. And we are about to do another project together, so I'm very, very happy about that.
Very cool. And how cool is it, and I found this out after, that the actual creator of Gran Turismo, Kazumori, was actually the sushi chef, right?
That's right.
That's a great Easter. That's a great
little
Easter.
And actually, what was wonderful about it is that we shot the Tokyo scene, the Japanese scene, at the very end of the schedule. And so it was so he was with us on the final day of the principal photography.
Oh, that's great.
That was really, that scene, we shot it on the last day. So that was fantastic.
Last question. What was your biggest challenge in this movie?
The biggest challenge on this movie was very much controlling the weather, and the fact that I cannot control the weather, and trying to, you have 22 cars going full speed on track. Extremely difficult to keep perfect, correct exposure. Deciding, that I keep saying it, but it was kind of I felt that every day I had a kind of almost Shakespearean decision to make. Should I put some ND on the windshield or not? What the weather is going to be like 5 minutes from now? What is my exposure is going to be in a mile and a half away, and that kind of thing. So those kind of were the decision that was very, very difficult to do. And at the same as well, the actors, we gave complete freedom to the actors in a pit lane, pit box, pit perch. And so figuring out which way they are going to go, and I have plenty of camera going everywhere and lighting this location, lighting this, making sure I've got enough on every place, for the actors to perform correctly.
I can't believe the budget was only $60 million. I feel like because everything was so real and things were used that were real, I was like, this has got to be closer to 100. And I was like, $60 million. It's hard to believe. What's around the corner for you? Any future projects you want to do?
Since I come back from Gran Turismo, I went straight with Pittsburgh. I was telling you, I'm doing this Netflix movie mini-series called American Primeval. It's a Western.
Nice.
And taking place in Wyoming in the 1850s. And so it's been a blast, and it should be on Netflix either next year or on 2025. And then we have not finished it. We have about 2 weeks. We're almost there, so we're waiting for the strike to be over, of course.
Yeah.
And then in between, I'm probably going to do another movie with Neil coming up very, very soon, which is going to be much more into what Neil is known for, which is more in science fiction horror things. Yeah. So this is in the pipeline right now.
I'm a big fan, and I'm really happy for you. And thank you for all the wonderful things you bring to the screen. I'm very thankful for that.
Absolutely, Dyke. Thank you so much for reaching out, and anytime.
Take care of yourself.
You know where to find me.
I'll find you. Thank you very much.